Hey, welcome to part 5 of 6 in this introductory guide to Elite Dangerous. And in this guide, yes, you read it correctly, we're going to have a bumpy ride. We're in for some combat. And in this section, we'll be taking you through various types of combat. We've seen some already. And let's begin where the last one left off. Here we are at the end of the mission to get back to Altair from our rares run. And so let's line ourselves up with that station and dump the last of our rares before we head off for some combat. And once again, I apologise if there is any stuttering, because that is my recording software trying to record and play this at the same time. But apart from that, let's land and let's end that particular adventure. Let's refuel and head on into that commodities market. Let's see how much cash we can scoop up. We are on virtually 3 million credits and we've still got 10 tons of Mechikos high tea. Let's sell that for 12,600 per ton. And we also have the Aegean, 10 tons of the Chateau. Let's sell that for 6.6 thousand per ton. We really do need to fly further to get more for that. But we are now over the 3 million barrier with some more Altair skin to pick up. I will check out the bulletin board first of all, because I'm keen to find a rank progression mission. So all we can do is return to the commodities market and sell off the rest of our holdings, which are a few items that we've managed to pick up along the way. That means we have a completely empty ship before going to combat. Of course, we don't want to be blown up if we have stocks in our vessel. We do not want to have those blown out of the cargo hatch, as we shall see a little later on. It's also a good idea to go through the contacts and make sure we don't have any fines to pay off or any bounties to cash in. If we are raided and stopped and we manage to blow up that raider, that pirate will award us some cash usually. And as we have seen, different factions and different allegiances will pay us that cash. All we have to do is to fly out there. And part of our mission today is to fly out there. But I'm looking for rank progression missions, because hopefully the next rank will allow us to upgrade. The top of the class is the Anaconda. We can't afford that at 146 million. But the next one in our range would have been a Type 9 if we want some heavy duty long distance space trucking. But if we want something with a little more firepower, you can't go wrong with a Federal dropship. That has virtually the classes that we have at the moment, but instead it has 4 class 2 medium hardpoints and 1 large hardpoint is a class 3, and that will make light work of those enemies. I guess a class 3 hardpoint laser would work just as good as 2 class 2s put together, so that is worth upgrading. But unfortunately we can't find those rank progression missions, and we also can't find all of these places where we are supposed to pick up these little bits of cash, and I have no idea where those are, which systems. And well, Mechikos there, that's a little obvious, that gives that away. And Wolf, well, the Alliance, that will give us 200,000 credits. Let's make a beeline for that. Let's set up the Navicom so that gives us all the information we need, i.e. the Alliance, and let's scout around for those. The Alliance is a very much smaller network than the Federation or the Empire, and so you'll have to scout around for those. They take up the top portion of the galaxy, so let's move towards the top, and the closer we get to the top, the more likely we'll find those. There we go. And they wrap around the side as well. But in this galaxy, the Federation is in the middle and the Empire is on the bottom layer. Let's aim for the closest one, and let's set up the fastest route. Of course, in the Navicom we don't want too many jumps, and just 2 jumps there will get us to that 200,000 credits, you can see the alliance systems all grouped together. And so let's head off and let's make for that money. Let's speed up the footage because this is a long show. Let's get to that action and let's boost our way away from that station. And then when we are far enough away, you can see we can boost in a straight line, and then at the last moment we can casually turn around. And don't worry if the trajectory is even in the middle of the station there. It looks like we're crashing straight through that, but as long as we hit that full throttle and line it up, we'll be fine. And as long as we don't career ourselves anywhere near that and get mass locked, which will automatically cancel the frame shift drive. But this is our destination. This is the Alliance station, and the Alliance is unknown territory to us. They won't be very friendly, I don't suppose. And the main Alliance is all the way here. This is the traditional home. Diesel, Lave, Leasty and all the rest, those are from the first Elite game. And there was actually a war going on in Lou pretty recently, and that's out there between the Alliance and Federation. They were arguing over that space, and so that is no longer going on, but people could earn big money. Solo and multiplayer, people can earn big money just by checking out the Galnet news. And if there is a war, a major war, then millions can be handed out by successful kills. And so, as this chapter is all about war, let's check out my combat stats. I'm now on 97 kills, which people who interdicted me or I interdicted them, and I have 1 combat bond so far. Combat bonds are another type of kill earned in a war zone, and so we'll be checking out both of those types in this play guide. And starting with number 1, the interdiction. You may notice the play guides dovetail into each other. We began interdicting in the last one, we'll continue with this one. You can see a federal dropship, he's wanted. I have a frame shift interdictor, and so let's move closer to that thing. We can't actually speed up because we're already travelling, well, we're actually already slowing down for our destination, but you can see we are catching up to that guy. You can see on the left hand panel, and get behind target. Sometimes you have to really slow down for those and match their speed, otherwise you'll overshoot. But if we are close enough, you can see by pressing that mouse button we can initiate the interdiction sequence. And if I casually line that guy up in the centre of my screen, or at least try to, they will of course try to outmaneuver. There you go, try to get him in there, and then when we have enough blue on our side, then the interdiction will be over. Gaining control, the first thing I like to do is to power up those systems, the weapons and the shields, and usually the first run of that enemy's attack will try to damage the first cell of our shields. You can see the third cell of the 3 has been depleted. I like to release chaff at that point before the scan has even started, and that makes sure that his first run doesn't penetrate that shield. But I'm not sure that we have chaff in our setup at the moment. What we do have is 4 multi-cannons and 2 class 2 beam lasers. And as we use those, the power on our weapons will go down, so we have to pause momentarily, allow those to recharge. And the beam lasers are long-range snipers, and they will go very long distances. And the cannons, well, it will actually show you when they're in range by highlighting those in orange, and when they're not in range they'll fade out. So, close range combat is usually more effective, large cannon you may even miss unless you are very up close, and missiles are virtually useless if that guy has a missile evading device unless we are very up close. So with the big missiles it's best to use those very within range. If we can get within range, then that guy is no problem. Remember to slow down if we turn.
Frameshift charge detected.
Try to get behind your enemy. That means they have virtually nowhere to go. If you don't blow up the enemies in time, you heard they can frame shift drive away, and we'll have to knock those down to 0% before they do that. Otherwise they'll leave a high energy frameshift drive wake behind, and we'll have to use a frameshift drive wake analyzer to scan where they've gone and follow those and blow those up. So that was kind of a waste of ammo, but you saw the guy dropped a load of cargo behind. So let's initiate the cargo pickups that we've tried to do already. Let's try to pick these up, and we'll perfect that process in the very next video. Picking up cargo is a matter of switching on the cargo hatch, lining those things up, slowing down to below 20, speed 20. You can see we're on 33 at the moment to the right of the radar, and that is a little too quick, and we are in the blue zone for picking those things up, but you have to be really quick to do that. Above 20, we'll try 33. Let's try again. There are quite a number of cargo canisters in this area. We can scan those and they will appear. And this appears to be gallium, which isn't worth a great deal, but we can scan those around. There's some indium, which is worth precious little again, but we can scoop those up. And again, we will become wanted if we do that, so just like illegal slaves, we'll have to boost in and out of stations to sell those, otherwise we'll get fined, and those fines can definitely negate the cost of selling those and smuggling those in the first place. We have slowed down. Well, we're still travelling 33 actually. Let's try again at that speed since that is in the blue zone. Let's see if we can pick up that cargo. You can see we can actually speed towards that cargo as long as we are slowed down before it gets anywhere near us, i.e. the last kilometre. You can see it is 1.5 kilometres away. We'll need to get closer. That thing will disappear under our craft, and hopefully it will then transfer itself to the camera, which you can see in the left hand panel to the left of the radar, and that camera will show us, and the sound effect will tell us when we're online, and the beep will get louder and more precise the more we are online. It's certainly worth taking our time to do that, just to make sure that we get that cargo and we don't waste our time trying. Get to our destination in the Alliance. It's another outpost and we are in an asp, so that's no problem. It's number 3. We're approaching at an odd angle. Let's see if we can make something of this, and let's see if we can land in one piece. If we land at an odd angle, the capture will still capture us, and don't forget that's floating in midair, and I think some robot arms are supposed to capture us in midair. I'm not quite sure, but that does that, and a tractor device or a beaming device perhaps. The most important thing is to cash in this Alliance bounty, and that will give us those hundreds of thousands. It puts us up to 3.7 million, so that was worth fighting a federal dropship, even though we didn't get that cash. and after a few repairs, it means we can check out the bulletin board. Let's see what the Alliance has on offer, and well, usual brand of things. And low orbital, there is actually Justice Party needs you. Well, there's lots of things on offer there. Proactive combat, that's what we're looking at in a war zone. All we need to do is take down 6 pilots in LHS 2764A. Well, perhaps that would be something wise to do. Let's check out 11.7. There it is. It's just the next planet, 2764A, and all we need to do is to fly there, apparently, take down 6 guys, and we'll gain that cash. So let's accept that mission in the war zone, and let's see if we can turn that into reality. It's easy money there. All we need to do is to remember LHS 2764A is the destination and nowhere else. If you don't remember that, and you don't select that, and you don't scout that out, then unfortunately you may fly straight by the war zone. Some major war zones are massive and can be found from anywhere in the solar system, but some are so small they need to be flown straight to, otherwise you'll miss those. But it's important that you make a note of the faction that you've taken on the mission from. If you don't, that might detriment your reputation. And there's another elimination mission. He'll be in a Python or an Anaconda, so you really need to be in an ASP at minimum if you want to take on one of those. I've seen real masters take on pros in a Sidewinder. So let's just speed up, let's just head on out there, let's take off and fly out, and let's see if we can find that war zone. And all we need to do is take down those guys, and we'll get the prize for blowing those up, plus the extra that we got in the bulletin board advert. And so that's double money sometimes when you're blowing up 6 easy guys. They don't all have to be Pythons and Anacondas. You can blow up Eagles and Sidewinders, and that will count. Arriving in this system, we find no obvious war zones on the map. Either low or high intensity war zones will appear, and there is medium intensity as well. We can see a number of mineral extraction sites. That's not too bad, because those we will find enemies as well, and you also find way beacons which have enemies floating around those, and USS unexplored, unidentified signal sources. But checking out that war zone, it could be around any one of these planets if it isn't around the main star itself. And you'll have to fly out to those planets and check out if those guys have a war zone. And it certainly says that that war zone is here, but I can't actually find that on the radar. Most times, if there is a war zone in the area, it will appear in the radar, and unless I am completely blind, which I have definitely been known to be from time to time, there's low orbital, which is actually a station, but I can't actually see war zone. So I'm going to have meet defeat, because you can see for yourself, I can't see a war zone, and I'll have to fly around to every single one of these if I want to check those out. With still no sign of the war zone, I head on out to a mineral extraction site. You can see that's where I am at the moment, with lots of traders and miners actually inhabiting this area. You can see those flying around comet-like lights, which can all be interdicted, and you can even see another sun on the horizon. And so let's explore this resource extraction site. By flying in somewhere above or below towards the center, hopefully we'll find the center of the mineral extraction site all the quicker. And speed and time is important in this game. Still checking to see if I can see a war zone. I can't. So this is the second best option. In a resource extraction site, you will find just as many pirates as miners, and as long as you sort out the wheat from the chaff and kill all the chaff, then you'll have all the credit reward. And those appear on the radar as wanted as usual, and you'll find anything in there. You may notice, I'll just point out, on the far right we have illicit cargo. You can see that on the heads up display above our fuel. The illicit cargo is because we picked up those canisters a moment ago. We managed to pick up 2 canisters actually from blowing up a federal dropship. This is a belt cluster of a whole new kind, because we are now orbiting a planetoid, and it's a gas giant, and around that is an asteroid or otherwise boulder field, and it's a belt cluster. Those things can be mined, and those things have to be avoided, particularly if you are boosting around the universe, and it's certainly easy to die if we boost at high speed into one of these things. And it's easy to do that if we fly into the dark zone like this, where the asteroids simply melt into the background. And I could be heading straight into a boulder field right now without my knowing it, so let's head instead towards the lighter part of the starfield, and sometimes these things are completely dark. But let's head into that activity and let's start scanning, and let's sort out those guys. You can press the T key on any target to scan those individually. I press the F8 and F9 key to scan through all the ships in the area, and F10 if there is a threat on the radar appearing in red. You can simply press the next hostile threat, cycle through the hostile threats, and I've assigned that to my F10 key. And so maybe F11 could be previous and next hostile threat, but ignoring the key setups, we've managed to find a Viper. He is clean. I'm just using the kill warrant scanner just to make sure that those guys don't have anything on them from anywhere else in the galaxy, and that's completely possible to have that, but you can see no record bounty on that guy. So he appeared clean and he scanned clean, and that's good enough for me. Let's move on to the next one. It's a Viper, and he's clean as well. We only have to use the kill warrant scanner once in any activity, and that will scan every craft with the kill warrant scanner from then on, which is great. It means that this Eagle we can get the money from, and any bounties from another system. And it's important to remember that if those guys create mischief in another system, to evade the law, all they will do is teleport, bounce around the systems, and you will find those guys clean, but they are actually under the skin wanted. But in this case we can clearly see that this guy is wanted, and it's an Eagle, probably the least effective ship in the game. He has minimal shields, and we can blow those away with a few blasts or a laser, and Eagles really don't take much explanation. We can lay into that. As soon as it hits 0%, it will give us the cash. And sometimes those ships blow up before they reach 0% hull integrity. As seen on the left panel, you can see me cycling through. The left image will reveal the shield and the hull integrity. Sometimes the hull integrity can be on 44%. If you hit that power plant, it's going to blow up. If you hit the canopy, it's going to blow up. If you hit something vital, it's going to blow up. So sometimes that can happen out of complete thin air. You don't realise that might happen, but usually you have to wait until the hull integrity is all the way down, and then it will blow up. So continuing our scanning mission, we have destroyed, well, let's not crash into that because that's so easy to do. And absorbing these graphics and these effects, let's hunt for our next victim in a starfield. And up to press, there are no revolving, rotating asteroids floating around in space that you can just crash into, and that will be a little unfair to crash into those perhaps, but you can certainly move through these belt clusters and find, well, there's another eagle there. Let's scan. Well, he flies away. It's possible to scan through all the ships in the system, of course, and any that you've scanned already will already be clean, so you can ignore those. I'm having much more luck here finding somebody else that's wanted, and sometimes in these situations it's possible to watch the activity, look at the laser beams and see who's firing. I can see lots of activity over in the distance there. Some of those will be legitimate miners, some of those will be pirates firing on those miners, and so you have to defend those, and unfortunately we can't find too many in this particular extraction site. Sometimes you can find pythons and anacondas and everything in between, federal dropships and imperial clippers, but in this case sometimes you may only find sidewinders and cobras and the odd eagle in some extraction sites. When that happens, it's probably best to move on to the next one, and if there are more than one extraction site maneuvering around these heavy large boulders, if there are more than one extraction site, sometimes that can harbour a different batch of allies and enemies. That's another ally, that Cobra Mark III. So in this particular one, I'm probably best to go to another extraction site with a lot more activity going on. Let's check out these sidewinders, because they are generally the ones who are wanted, but no, that's another clean one. And let's try to find at least one more ship before we leave this area. And it's great to see these ships flying around. You can see the enemies using the left hand panel, and we can also check out our progress in the war zone. If we are in a war zone, we can check that out at any point. We are not, we're in a mineral extraction site, and so no claims from this will count as war zones, and if you claim any bounties, they will be claimed as normal bounties, whereas all the kills claimed in war zones will count as combat bonds. So combat bonds and kill bounties are different things. One is legitimate, one is semi-legitimate, and again, we cannot find the war in this area, so at this point we might as well remove the mission from our transactions, which says that we can gain those funds from the war. We can actually select to abandon that, and if we select it again, we can discard that from the transactions options, and we seem to have gained a fine. Many thousands of credits for smuggling. Well, that's in the alliance, and it can only mean one thing. If we take a look at the right hand panel in our cargo settings, it should reveal quite clearly that we did not. We absolutely forgot to sell all those little containers, those canisters that we collected, and because those were stolen, blown out of a ship and then collected, those are stolen, it means we have that illicit cargo light, and it means that we collected a fine, ironically, when we went to collect that 200,000 bounty claim from the Alliance. So the Alliance gave us money and took it away with the other hand. Let's set our destination, and it's easier to type Epsilon Indy for me to find locale, and having found Epsilon Indy, we can go straight there. Of course, it's great to admire the scenery, and the scenery of the universe is one of the reasons why people play this game, and it's one of those things which take the breath away, of course. But let's move on, let's find our locale. just before we do that, there is another opportunity for combat, and that is an unidentified signal source. So let's identify that unidentified signal source, and let's fly there. All you need to do is select that off the left hand panel as usual, or if you see that flying around, you can target that, and your target will then be transformed to targeting reticule over to the left of the radar. It will then target that, and you can even see there what looks like a waveform on the left, and that's the signal strength. Large signal strengths are better because they mean more ships. Small or low signal strength, obviously those are just cargo canisters, and as we found out, if you forget to dump off those cargo canisters, you'll gain a fine. So we did gain the fine, and we have that to bear. Let's check out this unidentified signal source, and you can see the pilot is now trying to hail us, and we can press the communication keys to contact that pilot. Unfortunately, while I'm trying to establish myself, I'm actually having time to read that, and now I've lined up that pilot. All those words have now disappeared. But if we press the communication key, we can scroll back and we can read back what that guy had to say, and as far as I know, he said basically turn back and we will offer you a reward. It says right at the bottom for information, and you can pick up black boxes and trade those in with the Alliance, things like that. And even in Locale there are factions within factions, and well, having read half a novel there of information, when a simple how's it going, would you like to trade would have been enough, would have been great. But in this game we can fly very close, and we can establish a link if we fly very close to a pilot from an unidentified signal source. If we are trying to find a general, we can ask where that general is, and we may gain directions to where the general is by this very method, and flying very close to an unidentified signal source. We can trade rares, and they really do like to buy from us, particularly performance enhancers and things like that. Fly to an unidentified signal source, and that trade link will be established. You can see I'm maneuvering around the communications panel and trying to exit the communications panel to return to the game. And that pilot has now flown off while I've done all that. Unfortunately, I didn't really understand that, but that's another way of gaining combat. If those guys turn out to be immoral, we can scan those with the kill warrant scanner and find that out. Around Locale, which is only a stone's throw from Altair and the central systems, the core systems in the Federation, a stone's throw, you will always find a war zone in this place, because, well, for some reason they like falling out with each other internally. And let's investigate this low intensity war zone, where half of the ships can be blown up, and that means we can gain combat bonds. Sometimes there are a number of war zones in an area, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 in a high intensity system, and if you fly to the next system you might find some more, and the very large ones are on the bulletin boards and advertised as wars going on, and of course on the Galnet with the massive ones which involve lots of multiplayers. But the small ones like this are worth investigating. If you can remember where they are, you can then fly in there, and it's a great way to earn some money. Just like every other aspect of cruising in this game, as soon as we get anywhere near that thing, press that 75% key. 75% in this case will slow us down from the 7-second mark, and then when we are close enough to that thing, we can then safely eject by pressing the M key. So let's fly close to that, and it's surprising we'll have to fly very close to these things to safely eject. And this war zone happens to be in the middle between a planetary ring and the planet itself. doesn't require any genius to imagine. If you fly too close to that planet, then you'll gain some kind of danger, and the gravitational pull from that thing won't be very amazing given all this fighting action going on, and maybe we'll see plenty of that. Let's press the M key and look at all those ships in the area. The first thing we need to do is to access the right hand panel and select our faction. In this case I'm going to choose Jet Holdings, and obviously the one that you choose, the other side, will then become the target. So in this case all the ones from the Crimson Drug Empire will appear in red. And all we have to do is to cycle through the next hostile threat keys and they will appear in red. We can then choose whichever ship we like and blow that up. In this case, we've selected a Python, so let's move closer to that. Let's instigate all our lasers and all of the chain guns, known as the multi-cannons, and they're basically mini-guns in this game. Let's fire all those off, and of course the only thing we need to watch out for is if we use chaff, then those shots will be ineffective unless we get close range. Let's move a little closer to this huge object in space so that all those bullets count. Of course, if you can follow from the rear, then that thing is virtually indefensible unless it has major guns on the rear, which most don't. Most fire forward. So that's his shield out of the picture. You can see lots of flak, known as fragments, are being fired by his fragment cannon, and they have moderate effects on shields, a very powerful effect on very small shields like sidewinders, a moderate effect on shields once we get to this stage, and so that will mean that our shields are still up while his are not. The Python is again the second toughest ship, so you'll have to get stuck into that, and you'll have to watch our power on those power bars before they run out of power. And again, he's using chaff, so while the enemy is using chaff, use that time to regain that power. And of course, using all of the armaments together like this really does use up that power, and it won't be long before that peters out and we'll have to recharge all over again. Guide arms distance means that we aren't being fired upon at this stage. We can take our time blowing them up. Combat is also a great effect when those things blow up with a great explosion.
Target destroyed. Target shields offline.
And on the horizon we see another Python. It's worth gaining the credits from destroying those. And like before, I'm just going to use my kill warrant scanner in this sector just to make sure I get maximum profit from these kills. I have to use that thing once, and it's important to avoid colliding into things at full speed. And look at that, that thing didn't take much to destroy at all, but we didn't get the credits for it either. In this game, if you amass damage, then you'll gain credits for that damage. And if you blow most of that ship up, you'll get full credits. But if that ship is on its last legs, then you won't get full credits, or you might not get anything at all. So sniping in this game, blowing that thing up at the last possible moment, shouldn't actually give you that many credits. And taking our time, destroying over 50% should give us a whole. At this point, I am choosing not to destroy the Python, because I was waiting for my shields to recharge, And if we have shield boosters, that means they recharge more quickly. And if we have a huge power distributor and a nice big fat power supply, it means maximum can be used on those boosters to boost those shields. At the moment you can see I have 1 pip on engines, just in case we want to boost out. I have 1 pip of energy on the systems to maintain those shields, which are actually at full strength, and the rest are on weapons, so those lasers can be recharged to the full. If we are in any kind of danger, it's best to put all power to the shields and the boosters, and so we'll see distress mode a little later, but for now let's check out this Cobra. And the shields aren't in too good repair, so it shouldn't take too long to blow this up. Although, again, is it worth blowing up a ship that is half down already, because you might not get all the credits and all the reward. But with full shields on the go, it's great to unleash all our weaponry, and it's great to knock those out of existence.
Under attack. Target shields.
Beam lasers, the multi-cannons don't actually use up that much power, so sometimes it's best to switch off those beam lasers and concentrate on the multis, and you'll actually find that the power builds back up slowly, and you will still be gaining kills on the enemy. Of course, bullets run out on the multi-cannons, and we only have 2,000 bullets maximum, so at this point we can't buy extra bullets, but you can see the point defense. Lots of mines will be laid in the area, torpedoes can be blown up, missiles can be blown up, and virtually everything in between. Limpets will attack us as well, and the point defense can cope with most of those, and the ECM can cope with most of those, so I prefer the point defense. It also looks great in the heat of battle.
Target shields offline.
Using the boosters to try and catch up with the enemy who ran away. Some enemies are nimble enough to turn around and run in the opposite direction. And that's just what this enemy did, so I had to slow down and reduce that boost, having overshot it. So that can be another tip to remember. Sometimes wait and see what those enemies do, because if they turn around just as you are boosting, you'll basically overshot each other. And let's scan through this area. I'm actually pressing the keys to toggle the ships in the area rather than the enemy threats, just to show you the ships in the area. A varied supply of Cobras and Asps, and mainly Cobras and Asps and Sidewinders at the moment, and another Cobra there. Sometimes they can just frame shift out of range or run away before we even get close to those. So let's move on to the next one. There's another Cobra. It's possible to choose our targets at this point and wait around for the big targets to appear, and if they don't appear we can always super cruise out of the area, turn around and super cruise back in again, and the enemies will respawn at random. Sometimes we can even fly to another war in another region, or we can alternate ourselves between traction site and the war, and then we can scoop up both kills, normal bounty kills, and of course the war, which we're in at the moment, will give us combat bonds. Let's take down another Viper, and let's get another one of those, because you saw at the beginning of this guide, the beginning of this section, we only have one combat bond by killing one guy in one war zone, so it's time to accumulate a few of those, and we are on almost 100 kills, and so we are building up slowly our reputation as a fighter, so hopefully it won't be long before we move up from novice to competent. another enemy escaped. Sometimes the cobras and the vipers are notorious for trying to escape before you've inflicted too much damage on those. And of course, just like real life, who wouldn't want to boost out of a hell zone if being fired upon until your ship is almost exploding? So if you have to kill those guys, you have to make sure by getting in range and keeping on them doggedly. They will try to frameshift out, of course, but you have to keep on going. Sometimes they don't, but most times even the large craft try to frameshift drive out of there in danger, so you have to finish those off before they've had time to do that. So now that we are in the system, it's pretty exciting doing this in a ring system, but this time it isn't, in amongst boulders which can kill us outright. And again, we can fly around and pick and choose our targets. I prefer not to fly around vipers and cobras, because vipers and cobras are nimble and they can inflict a lot of damage quickly if they gang up. You can see on the radar precious few enemies there, so I'm going to have to pick and choose. And as that guy flown off the radar, it looks quite like that. So there are no red ships on the radar now. We have destroyed them all. And because this is a small drug empire, of course, they won't have too many ships flying around. But that's how you get ships. Destroy those in a war zone. And look at that, new contact has been made. Who is it? Well, it's another Viper. Gain much money for those either, and after think about this, the two new contacts have appeared, so let's check those out. And one of those is an asp, so that's more of a temptation than a viper. Let's get out there and let's find that guy, and let's transfer all our energy around before we even start. And then we have maximum 2 pips to shields this time, because it's in an asp, so it's the same as us, it's the same ship. And the rest go to weapons. We can leave the energy in the booster in case we need to boost out, but an asp isn't too much of a problem. You can see it's a big large pancake on the flat side of that thing, so if you can hit it on the flat side, it's virtually unmissable. And you can see it's trying to ram us. Sometimes they do, so what we need to do is to avoid that. And if we can, well, you can see it's taking on a lot of flak from all our friends on the radar. It'll be long before this guy is toast, but of course keep on his tail, because sometimes they can boost out. It's another kill wasted if they do that, so don't be afraid to boost and have maybe half a pip or 1 onto the engine's management system, and we still have some power remaining. Then it's back to the small fry. You can see we are flying amongst the green raiders, and that will back us up if there are very few craft on the radar. You can see another couple have appeared, and so sometimes it's possible to break off our current attack. It doesn't seem possible or even worth it to do that, and you may see me breaking off my attack as well when raiders get into our line of fire. Sometimes our friendlies can get into our line of fire, and that happens. And our friendlies, all the lot of them, every last one, will actually turn against us, and we'll have to fly out. So let's not have all our friendlies turned against us, let's just not fire when they fire in our region, and let's continue on the back of this cobra. As soon as the enemy reaches 0%, we can then ignore that. So we got the credits for it. You can then turn our attention to a new enemy, and in this case it's a python. You can see its inner wing 3, which is number 3 of 3, and so that will be triply defended, once by itself and again by its other 2 companions. So let's ignore the companions in this case, which was particularly the wrong thing to do perhaps, but let's continue on with the python, and of course they will try every trick in the book to not get hit, as any pilot would. So let's try to gain some height on the thing, and of course we're being blasted by the Viper behind, so let's turn our attention to everything at once in this game. You never can tell which is the best priority, but you can see we are getting hammered. Tried to use a shield cell bank at that point, and you may have heard that, but it didn't appear to have much of an effect. And 1 ring of our banks should reappear as soon as we use a shield cell bank, and all of our rings have disappeared. When that happens, then our shields will have to be restored 1 block at a time. We have 2 pips on the shields at the moment, and we are getting hammered, so it's a choice. Choice in this case between survival and death. So let's not risk death, let's just boost out of the area while we still have some shields, and then we can simply recharge those and restore those, and we can come back to the fight fully restored. You can see our hull integrity has taken a huge beating as soon as those shields go down. We are under attack, and we are still under attack, so we are still having to boost away from those guys into clear space. At this point, I really should have realised that no power was actually going towards the shields, and the shield energy was on 0. So if I assign power to those shields, then they will recharge, but I noticed a squadron of friendlies on the horizon, so I thought by heading towards those, perhaps they will take care of the pursuers for me. And that's a good intelligent plan. Let's head towards those before we take much more hull integrity damage. Keep boosting away as much as possible. At a safe distance, we are not being attacked anymore, and 2 boosts should give us that. We can now assign, and remember to assign all that power back to our shields, and with those 2 shield booster units, it should be possible to recharge those a little bit quicker. Have the power on our side, let's rein that in and let's go after that Viper, because that Viper wiped off most of our shields and hull integrity, so it's a grudge match from now on. Let's get rid of that thing, and you can see it's trying to run away.
Shields online.
Finally the shields return. Let's press R key, let's trigger a shield cell bank. Save our power firing at that guy, and now that we have full shields on the go, and so I used my shield cell bank to give us all our shields back. We now have full power. Let's get after that guy, and you can see no other enemies in the area, so that guy is that target. Let's get him. It's payback time. like a fish on the line. Let's reel him in. Let's wait until we have the opportune moment and then strike. Don't mind telling you, full firepower against this guy is warranted in this case, and it will be a good day the day I get some cash back from this menace. Unfortunately, I forgot to chase after that kill and finish him off before he frame shifted out of there, and of course they always do, so unfortunately I didn't get a penny and I wasted all that ammo on that guy. So that can happen, and that's another tip to remember. You have to go in for the kill. If you don't, sometimes you can't, and sometimes that's a wasted opportunity. The python that we saw earlier seems to have got blown up by my comrades, which leaves a lowly eagle flying around in space, and it's hardly worth time and effort after all that. But let's continue to scan the vessels, and you never know, new appearances can appear at any point and show their face on the stage, and it appears that a lowly anaconda decided to sneak through, and its shields and its hull damage means hopefully if I boost in, get that cash, it should be possible. And yes, you can ram into these things if you have full shields and full shield boosts. You can ram into those guys and get the cash that way, but well, let's see if that's actually possible to do that. It's not very easy to ram those guys and boost in at full power, but it's certainly one of those things you can do. Certainly when you get up close and personal to these things like this, you have to be a little bit closer, and the big hefty ships such as this won't really get too far in a big hurry. So you can play virtually cat and mouse on a bigger scale with a ship like this, because the mouse is big and fat itself and really run very far away. Very close, and if you have the kill warrant scanner, then you can scan the subsystems, including the power drives and the energy shield and the frame shift drive. I've seen already you can target those individually, and it's a lot easier to do that if the thing is a lot closer, and sometimes, well, that can help, but in my experience, sometimes generally blasting that thing all over seems to have a greater effect on your killing ability. It's like roasting a hog above a Holton campfire. Yes, this is elite dangerous, and for that guy in particular, I am dangerous, and as I say, I can even target those subsystems, so let's give that a try. Different drives are on offer, and you can select those, and I've actually assigned target subsystems to my F4 and F5 key, so I can actually toggle between those live. watching live footage takes the breath away, and that's part of this game. After a hard battle, it's time to breathe in and out, a sigh of relief that we got through that thing in one piece. Those shields are still online after our brave runaway tactic earlier on, so let's persevere. Let's try to gain ourselves another dent on another python, and gaining another python after python after python. That's the third python in this skirmish. Let's check out its subsystems, and from here you can see FSD, frame shift drive. There's also power distributor, which, well, that doesn't do much, and power plant. Well, that will do a lot because that's the power for the entire ship. If you destroy that, then hopefully its entire systems will shut down. So the power plant is perhaps the hardest to destroy, particularly from this range. But you can see in the left hand panel, you can see the energy, rather the damage meter as I cycle through those things. Health reading of all those subsystems, and if that takes damage then those will go down. Boosting around in a warfield in an energy impact zone like this, with lots of high energy bolts and craft flying around at high velocity, isn't such a great idea, and my effort to boost into that guy almost boosted me into another guy. And so pythons here are bait, and they are the big fish in the pond, but chasing after a python may just give you a collision, and watching the radar, of course, in such conditions is difficult. I have assigned keys actually, so you can move in and move out of that radar and make those local events appear clearer, but I tend to leave the radar as it is because, as you can see, it makes those local events clearer as we approach targets. And so the shields are down. Let's try to aim for those weak spots in that python. In this case, the shield generator, you can see I'm aiming for, and hopefully, well, knocking down that shield generator in this case isn't doing much, but we know that we're impacting other subsystems as well, and the ship integrity will be taking a hammering. Oops. Looks like we have collided with an enemy, and that has ripped off one of our shields. Yes, one ring of shields is now away, and that won't take very long to repair, and that's another aspect of the game. Let's get back on the trail of this python, and that critter will run away into the grass and try to hide in amongst some of the ships, and sometimes it's best to pick off the stragglers, but in this case I'm hammering away on this python, trying to hit it before it's recharged its shields. And it'll try every trick in the book, so you try every trick in the book, keep on its tail. Hold back that fire to avoid shooting the friendlies. We don't want to turn the entire field against us at this point, not when we have 1% left on a python.
Target destroyed.
After all that action, the player really does feel like they've made progress in attacking this game, and surviving all that action is still great. Some victories feel better than others, and some grudge matches appear, and you can see I'm trying to boost towards another asp. So this game can be fun in these great war zones, and if you have a great ship it can be great, but of course you had to do a lot of hard work to afford these ships to get the best ships for the great war zones, and unless you are in maybe Asp or an Imperial Courier or the Imperial Clipper and all the other great ships in the game, then you won't be able to get that far in a war zone. Sometimes the last few percent of any kill are the hardest to destroy, and sometimes the last few percent can hang on in there, but in this case that one went without too much of a struggle. And you don't have to be in a bloodbath to earn big bucks in this game, but as I say, you have to have spent big bucks to afford the big ships to be in these kinds of situations. So although we can afford these things, well, sometimes being in the war zone gives us a lot more cash, which we can then spend on bigger upgrades. In the meantime, the player will have to do a lot of trading, perhaps, to get this far, but having done so, perhaps that is all the greater, sweeter feeling. Point, you can see I have absolutely no ammunition left whatsoever, except for a little bit on the point defense, and we can always take those guys out as long as we have power in the ship, and the ship's power is distributed, well, not quite maximum. We're taking on something there, an Asp, so we've actually raised our shields a little bit, but we are using as best as we can those powerful beam lasers. There is also pulse lasers and burst lasers in the game, and those will save power, but I find the long distance reliability of continuous power makes up for that. As long as you pulse your own firepower, then that's absolutely no problem. When we have no power left, those pulse lasers will automatically do that for us.
Target shields online. Target destroyed.
Another element to this game, which I'll just mention, is the one more kill scenario, when you really cannot break off the game until you've made just that one kill. And so this is my one last kill. It happens to be a Cobra, so let's just speed through that process. This is the video running at 200%. A Cobra won't take me too long to destroy it all. We are over the hour mark. Let's just get on with this. Return to the station. Let's see how much we got. After a few rounds on the dodgems, we bumper car our way through, and now it's time to boost out of this region back to the safety of what I like to call Chow Landing. It's probably KO Landing, whatever you call it. Let's check that out. Let's set our destination, and that's an outpost. We are in an asp, that's no problem. And now, having recovered, see our shield is fairly recovered, but we had to pull out of that situation. We have no ammo remaining to take on the bigger ships, and of course that's the problem, you cannot carry extra ammo. And so let's return back after all that time, after yet another long voyage. This time it's been a voyage into battle. Let's see how much we made from all that combat.
Landing gear deployed.
It's a stormy sea out there, let's just land this vessel and dock. All our munitions are dry, except for one shield cell bank that we appear not to have used out of the 5. That's the one extra that we gained from buying the B grade instead of the A. Let's resupply. And let's head on into that contact zone. Let's see how much we made from the combat bonds. And let's get rid, actually, of all these illegals. I'm absolutely sick to death of carrying illegal cargo, knowing the fines that we've had for that already. And that's really not much. So let's see the back of that and clean out the last few profit before we check out the main zone. That's the security area. We can't pay off those fines there because they're Alliance fines, but we can take on the Jet State holdings. That's 184,000 credits. How does that affect our totals? Let's check those out. Let's press the D key to tab across those from the first tab, and let's roll up and down. We can see our balance, we're still on 24 million credits, and in the combat we've gone up. It's now 98, still not quite 100, and instead of 1 we now have 11 combat bonds on record. So thank you very much for checking out this. Not quite 1 million earned from combat, you'll notice, and you'll notice not much from smuggling either. And so this is perhaps one of the last times you'll see this. The next part is to follow. So thank you once again for following another play guide, this time to Elite Dangerous Combat. Hope to see you again in the final part soon. Thank you.